Hello, everybody. This is the PlasticSpoons channel. Today, it is me, Jonah. I am by myself. I want to take the time to do a podcast by myself, just see how it works, get the sense of it and how it would feel, but still sticking with reviews, not doing an anime this time. This time, I will be doing the podcast, the review, the analyzing of a movie called After Last Season. Let me try again. After Last Season. I just watched it, and I kind of regret it, but, I thought to myself, hey, I want to do a solo podcast. I want to do something kind of fucking weird. And funny enough, this just got tossed to me out of pure randomness. I was in my room, and Andrew, a fellow plastic spooner, he sent a link to a YouTube video, which I clicked on it after last season, and Andrew told me that this movie somehow costed, or the budget was $5 million. And a lot of the info I go off of right here is off of IMDb, but sure as shit, I after watching like maybe 20 minutes of the movie, I didn't believe him. I was just like, that, I don't believe this would cost $5 million. So I go on IMDb, and sure as shit, it's estimated that it is $5 million that this movie cost. I was amazed. I didn't believe it, but here I am, and I watched it, and I mean, there's certain parts where someone just be like, oh, maybe that's where the money went. I'd be like, I highly doubt that shit there costed $5 million. So as far as this movie goes, it's bad. Right off the bat, it's not a very good movie at all. It's unwatchable. There's those movies that are bad that you can watch. Like for me, I love The Room. I can watch The Room any day. I can watch Birdemic 1. I don't know about 2, though. I can watch those movies and have a good old time. I can watch those movies by myself and have a good old time. I love watching those movies. I especially love watching those movies with friends, especially if it's their first time, because they just are like, what the fuck is this? And, they have a good time with it. But after last season, I couldn't watch with people. I think we would have too much of a problem trying to understand this movie. And, oh, by the way, if it sounds like I'm far away from my mic, I'm just looking back towards my TV screen. Because I'm going to play the movie as I'm talking about it, but not like going scene by scene for it. Just give me an idea of what I was thinking when I was writing some stuff down, giving you raw impression of this fucking movie. Okay, so the movie starts off in in an MRI room, like a hospital. Like it's supposed to be a hospital room of an MRI machine that people go in and get scans of. Now, you can find this movie on YouTube. So if you're like, oh, I wonder what this fucking looks like, you just look it up. After last season, the entire fucking movie's on YouTube. They don't give a shit. But it starts off MRI machine room. The MRI machine is fucking cardboard. It's cardboard. It is like silver cardboard. And the room itself is a bedroom. Legit, it is a fucking bedroom. There's windows. There's windows to the outside world, which I never had an MRI scan before. I haven't. But what I have done is I've watched, doctor shows, like hospital shows, like House. I fucking love House. And I tell you one thing. I have never seen an MRI machine room be towards the end of a fucking hospital where the windows are at. Okay? This is a bedroom. There's a bedroom. There's a fucking... I think that's a closet door. It's either the exit door or the closet door. I'm pretty sure it's the closet door. So MRI machines rooms don't really have closets, for one. And, if that wasn't kind of annoying enough, like, I understand it's supposed to be, like, a thing of disbelief. You're supposed to, like, be like, okay, I get the idea that this is supposed to be something not what it appears to be. It's supposed to be a fucking hospital room or something. I don't even know where the fuck this is, but I'm assuming hospital. And there's a fucking fan. There's a ceiling fan. Ceiling fan with a light. It's a light ceiling fan. So as far as the idea of like, oh, this is a hospital room with an MRI machine, a cardboard one, but whatever. No, I don't. I'm not fucking buying it. No deal. I don't know. I'm watching it. It's still pissing me off. It's funny too because the guy. Okay, so starts off in the MRI machine. There's a guy and a girl. There's a guy and a girl. There's a girl doctor and a guy patient. And the guy patient has tremors in his hands. Parkinson's. I don't fucking remember what it was. Something wrong with his left hand where it's shaking. He's got that. And I'm just thinking of the ending right now. So it's fucking shaking, and they're like, all right, we'll just take a scan for whatever fucking reason. And the guy lays on something, and the girl pushes a button, and it like jaggedly just pushes him in. Like it stops for a second, like it pushes in like an inch, and then it stops, and it pushes in more. I'm assuming this guy was so fucking fat that they pushed him. And the one person pushing him was like, shit, I can't do this smoothly enough. And they're like, all right, get two guys in there. And then they did it. Yeah, okay, so it was Parkinson's. What's amazing about this scene is that it goes on and shows me the lack of, like, how many takes they're willing to take. So there's a line that the lady doctor says. She says something, and she fucks up the line. You can tell by her face. She fucks up the line. She kind of makes a face of like, I don't think that's what I'm supposed to say. She looks down on the counter which she's behind, which it's like, okay, she's looking at her fucking script. Okay. She fucks up the line. She looks back up, and she makes the correction. She repeats the whole fucking line and makes the correction. And it amazes me. Like how, like, they were like, okay, that was good or whatever. You got the line in your head. Let's just retake it. No, they're like, no, fuck it. That's fine. It's not that big of a deal. Which I can understand if they thought that, because later you kind of find out, yeah, this scene wasn't a big fucking deal. The first scene was fucking pointless. There's only like one thing to it. Or I guess two, if you just want to be like, okay, this is an MRI machine room. That's what this room is supposed to be. So they do that. And, oh my god, the lady fucked up the line. Yeah. There's so many unnecessary jump shots, like jump cuts, shot cuts, or whatever. Like, it shows, the lady, and then it shows, like, the corner of the fucking room. And then it shows back to the lady, and then it shows the fucking ceiling. This movie's trying to fill time. And it amazes me, because I look, throughout this movie, there's so much time wasting, where I'm trying to, like, figure out the reasoning behind everything. And I think the only reason why any of these scenes are in this movie is so to waste fucking time. This movie's an hour and a half. And I can tell you right here, right now, they could have used, like, half an hour of it. There was, like, half an hour worth of footage that may have been semi-relevant. Or, like, relevant's not the good word. Like, usable footage that makes sense. It just didn't make sense. I'll get more into that. Yeah, so the first scene made absolutely no fucking sense. It made no sense. So then we go on to the next scene, so there's a doctor and two students. And I'm trying to look over to see if it's like the two main people in the fucking movie. And I'm pretty sure the main female protagonist, or whatever you want to consider her in this movie, is in the scene, and there's a guy protagonist. I'm pretty sure it's both of those people. The guy's name is Sarah. The guy's name is Austin. The girl's name is Sarah. So I'm assuming these two people in the room. So these two people walk into the room with a doctor. So it took me a little bit. It took me reading the description of what this movie was to understand what the fuck was kind of happening. But let me read the fucking description of what this movie is in IMDb. Okay, so here it is. So the fucking description of the movie is I can't fucking say this word. Neural students create a telepathic experiment together to visualize a murderer who recently knifed another student. Later, you find out that's kind of full of shit. Oh, by the way, yeah, probably fucking spoilers. I watched this movie and I was thinking maybe I'll just get to some of the nitpicky shit and not spoil it, but it's fucking hard not to talk about this movie in full. So, two students create a telepathic experiment together to visualize a murderer who recently knifed another student. Now, on paper, that sounds all right. The execution's terrible. So it's Austin, Sarah, and this fucking doctor. They're talking about brain scans, and they're talking about people hearing voices in their head. And it's just a bunch of random question. So during this scene, you're getting jump cuts, like shots from a different area. It starts off with this woman on this phone in this fucking hallway talking about where the fuck she lives. It has no importance of any. it has no importance. It's not important. It's not an important fucking part. It's just it cuts to that. It cuts back to the doctor talking about some more shit about the fucking brain, and it cuts back to this guy sitting on a chair, looking down, reading something or doing something, and then it cuts back to the doctor, and then it cuts back to him looking up, and then it cuts back to the doctor, and it cuts back to the guy standing up and like walking around, and then he cuts back to the doctor. The guy cuts back to the guy. He sits the fuck down. Cuts back to the doctor. Cuts back to the guy. The guy hears a knock on the door. So this is where things get as interesting as this movie can possibly fucking get. So the guy stands up. He goes to the door. Opens it, and he's just like, hello. And that's it. And then he goes, sits back. Actually, no, he doesn't do that yet. I don't know how to fucking explain it. I don't even remember. I know he stands up twice to go somewhere and comes back. So when he goes to the door when it is knocked down, he like stands outside and then cuts back to the fucking doctor, and it cuts back to the girl walking towards that same door. The guy's not there. The girl is on the cell phone. And she looks into the room and sees the guy's just laying there. And so as far as acting goes, the acting here isn't bad or outrageous or crazy. It's not like The Room bizarre, like Tommy Wiseau. It's not as like outrageous or crazy as Tommy. But it's not as like bland or wood, as some people would call it, as Birdemic. The acting, as line dialogue wise, the acting's not terrible. It's not bad. It's not noteworthy of being like, look how crazy these people are. No, it's fucking fine. It's fine acting. But when this guy is laying on the floor and this lady kind of walks in the room, you see that there's what is supposed to be blood. What is supposed to be blood on his chest, and it's just and that's where the disbelief thing is just like, okay, he's hurt. So the girl goes into him, bends over, like touches him. I don't remember what the guy's name is. Maybe I don't fucking remember, but he's like, legitimately, she's just like, Kevin, are you okay? just this guy's motionless, not breathing. Just, you okay? You okay, Kevin? And he's stabbed. Okay, so he's fucking stabbed. So there's that. And so then the scene cuts to these two girls just talking and laughing about random shit. It's like, I tried like rewinding and trying to understand the whole point of what the hell they were talking about, but there's no good use to it. The only thing of use to it is that one of the girls is Sarah's roommate. And the only thing that girl tells us about Sarah is that she doesn't know very much about her. She's like, oh, well, Sarah's off, this place during this time while I'm here, but when Sarah's here, I'm off at this place doing this thing. It didn't make any sense, that scene. And then the girl's like chuckling, laughing, and she's like, oh, nice radio clock. And then it just shows a fucking radio, and it's just like, oh yeah, it was tough to get one of those. I don't know if the writer or director was just like, just improv some girl chit-chat shit or something. Just fill in the fucking time. We're fucking limited to how much we have as far as like good material. So really, that's the scene. Like, even these girls, I can kind of tell, are like, I don't know what the fuck to say here. And you can kind of see in their line delivery, in their faces, like Sometimes they're forgetting the fucking line, or they're making something on the spot. But it didn't add up to anything. The only thing added up to, oh, Sarah, we don't know fucking much about Sarah. Sarah's always at school. And, you know, it just fucking feels like they're forgetting their lines or whatever it is. You know, let's get to a little bit of the areas they decided to record the scenes. So we have the MRI, machine room where it's a fucking bedroom. Okay, so then we have the scene where the guy who got stabbed was, I don't know what the fuck it was at all. It looked like an abandoned warehouse place. Where what it's supposed to be is an apartment building. You know, you have the room where the guy is at, and then you have the door that leads to the hallway, and the hallway has other fucking doors, that lead in somewhere else. And it's like, well, that's not a bedroom. And so here I am thinking, I don't understand why the fuck they decided to record those spots that they're at where it might have been a little better flip-flop. Like, if the guy in the apartment was in the bedroom area, and if the MRI machine was in a fucking, warehouse thing. I just didn't get it. So then we have the two girls in the room where it seemed like it was the same area, which I get it, but if it was an apartment, I would get it. But it's not. You see a shot of Sarah leaving the apartment, which is outside of a house. You get an outside of the house shot. So it's definitely not the same spot. And then you start thinking in your brain, you might have thought of this beforehand, but you're like, where the fuck did $5 million go? The visual quality is not good. The audio is horseshit. It's 2009. I don't know if I said that. This movie was released or made, or it was probably made and released on the same day for all I know. I would honestly put my money on that. It was made in 2009. It was released in 2009. I went on Amazon. I can't buy it. I don't know how the fuck to get it. But if it was $6, I would have bought it, but no, I can't find a physical copy. I didn't look hard, but I couldn't find a physical copy of the After Last Season. So, yeah, so you think, where the fuck did all this money go? So you keep going, and, also the music. So there's background music, and I've got to say, it comes out of nowhere. Sometimes this music is there, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it should be there, but it's not. And whenever it is there, it's kind of weird. There's sometimes where it's it's suitable for what it's supposed to be. I don't know. It's sometimes it's just a fucking piano hitting 4 keys, and that's it. And, I don't... Oh, God, I want to go in the history of this movie. I swear I do. But, the guy who did the music did get credited for it. But, here's the thing. I don't know jack shit how to play the piano, or any instrument for that matter. But I tell you what, I could do just about as good of a job as the guy who did the music score, if you want to call it a music score, for this movie. Sometimes it's just a bunch of fucking piano keys. Sometimes it's he's playing around on a keyboard. It's he did 20 minutes of fucking around on a keyboard with different instruments that the keyboard comes up with, horns and shit, and then gave it to the guy. And the guy was like, yeah, I could, maybe use some of this. I don't know. We'll see. But it's sad to think, as far as music score goes, anybody could have done that job. Anyone could have done that job. Okay, so what I have here is I have all the topic discussion shit for myself, and one of the things is they use Photoshop in this movie. There's a on the side of a building, there's a fucking Photoshop thing of a corporation or school or college of a parole's corporation. Just Photoshop on the fucking side of a school, and you can tell, and that's not the only time they use Photoshop in this movie. It's, oh my God, it's fucking, it's hilarious. So know what to make of this movie. I look back at it sometimes and I'm trying to remember what the scene fucking was, but for the life of me I can't. Like I'm looking back, like I paused it for a minute and I look back and it's still on the scene where the two girls are talking about the fucking clock radio and then like there's no point of it. So yeah, this movie trying to explain itself does as good of a job as me trying to explain quantum theory to somebody, even if that's a fucking thing. It's not. I mean, like there's no rhyme or reason to 75% of the fucking scenes. There's really not. So now there's a scene in this movie where a guy's reading a newspaper article about the stabbing of the guy that got stabbed in the beginning. And I feel bad because I wish they would have left me alone or just keep Minnesota out of the association. That's my home state. The guy apparently the city that these people are in are Minneapolis, Minnesota, or a Minneapolis city, which I assume is Minnesota. There's snow in the fucking movie. It's Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's fucking stupid. And I'm like, really? Did you have to do us dirty like that? But it makes me think, like, if they picked Minneapolis to do this, I think this movie was made in Minneapolis. Really, I feel like that's what they did. Oh, and this movie has a really bad sin on hanging on shots. And what I mean by hanging on shots, it's like when somebody delivers their lines and they're done, for whatever reason, the editor decided to stay on their face for a long time, like 5 seconds. Like say Sarah says, like, "Oh, I was just waiting for so and so to get out of the office," and then the next guy starts talking. It stays on their face, and I mean, even when it goes to the next guy, like the next guy, it will stay on his face, and then he'll talk. It'll be like 3 seconds. He'll be like, "Oh," it'll be like, I'm gonna wait until they get out of their office, and then it goes to the next guy, and the guy's just standing there like, "Oh, well, I think they'll be out soon." So I don't know why they did that. And then, so, like I said, 75% of these scenes are so fucking worthless. There's a scene where Austin, I think it was, Austin is like sitting around talking to someone over the phone, and here's the deal with the phone conversations. There's like 4 phone conversations in this movie, and they're all one-sided, meaning you only hear the person you see talking. You don't hear the person on the other end. It doesn't like cut to the other person talking. It's just one person talking, which to me kind of bothers me. I mean, if you couldn't just like cut to a different person fucking talking or put like an audio of somebody else talking, I mean, that would have added more time. And it's just annoying because it's just like how did this conversation get to this point? Like, you were talking about something and then it got to something else. It would have been explained if they would have fucking added the other person to the conversation. It's like 4 times. 4 times. Austin's on the phone with somebody and they're talking about like printers. Like, "Oh, do you guys have printers on your floor? Because printers on my floor are gone." "Oh, really? There's that problem too?" "Well, I think they have printers in the basement." It's like, where the fuck did you get that from? And then the scene ends. I'm sorry. The scene ends after that. I can't, like, I don't know what the more context of that scene was, but I know it wasn't anything worth remembering because it just was, "Oh, the fucking printers are in the basement." And you'd be like, "Oh, is there more to that basement?" I don't fucking know. If they were trying to lead more to some of these scenes, it definitely didn't get me. Like, if they were trying to explain why some of the scenes were taken in certain rooms, it was it didn't work, and it would have been unnecessary. Like, if a fucking room is like, if a scene's gonna take place in a room, like a classroom, it's gonna take place in a fucking classroom. There's a part where there's a piece of paper, which is not the typing on this fucking paper is not Photoshop. That's kind of important for later. The fucking paper says, "Oh, due to so and so situation, class is going to take place in room A3. Okay? And you're like, okay, is there more to it? And no, so then Sarah goes to that fucking classroom, picks up a piece of paper. The professor talks about something, fucking neurological or something, and that's the fucking scene. There was no real reason to explain why a scene or a classroom was going to take place in a certain classroom. I mean, it did look like the classroom was taking place in a fucking basement, so maybe they were trying to do that. I don't know who the person was who was in charge of taking care of where the fucking scenes were taking. It's not hard or a difficult challenge to go to a school or, a church or something or somewhere and ask them, hey, could we use this room for recording a movie that we're doing? It's not fucking tough. And honestly, most schools are like, oh yeah, if you can just do it. The times the schools are empty are so and so times. You could fucking record at those times. It's not hard. Like, how they couldn't get a fucking couple classrooms for some of this shit is beyond me. It's beyond me. I just didn't understand it. Okay, so kind of back to the story. So there's a part where Sarah and Austin are like, oh, hey, you're here. You're an intern here? And Sarah's like, oh, yeah, I'm here. And that's the fucking scene. Oh, okay. That's not just the fucking scene. And Austin's just like, oh, did you get done with that experiment that I'm working on? And Sarah's like, oh, yeah, I got it done. Fucking out of nowhere. It's like, Austin, we didn't know you were doing this shit. But, out of anything, that was the least random thing. Like, it's still pretty random, but it's just like, oh, okay, that's a fucking thing. That's fine. It's fine. And so then Austin goes on to ask her, like, oh, can you be part of a fucking experiment for me? And Sarah's like, oh, yeah, I can. And then she pulls out a daily planner, or like a weekly schedule, or whatever, a planner. And there is like 2 minutes of them talking about what day to do this experiment on. And like, Austin's like, can you do it on this day? Sarah's like, oh no, I have so-and-so such and such thing on that day. It's like, is that fucking a thing? Like, why couldn't you just been like, oh, can we do it Saturday? Like, oh yeah, we can do it Saturday. I'm free. That's it. Oh, it's because I'm pretty sure the fucking director, editor, writer was like, oh, we need to fill as much fucking time as we possibly can. Okay. So then the next scene I think worth of value is Sarah's phone call, which I assume is with her mother. And once again, like I said, it's a one-sided phone call. It's just Sarah talking. And everything Sarah's saying to whoever it is, I'm pretty sure it's a mother, has no worth fucking value. She's in her apartment house thing, and she's sitting around talking with her mom, and that's it. Just random shit. Just random shit. And her roommate, the roommate that talks about the radio clock earlier, pops in, and then Sarah just hangs up the fucking phone. Doesn't say bye. that was funny to me. It caught me off guard. I was like, oh, okay, I guess. No. If it's taking place in Minneapolis, no, you say goodbye. In Minnesota, we say hello and goodbye in phone calls. We don't just hang up. And it's not like when the roommate was walking in, Sarah was in the midst of hanging up. No, she walked in. Sarah was on the phone, looking like she was, in the middle of a conversation, and then she hangs up the phone. She puts it back on the hook. It's just dumb. Okay, so then we get to the scene, the room, no pun intended, of which this movie takes the most place in. And it's the experiment that main protag. I don't even want to fucking call him that. I don't want to call him protagonist because this movie is so fucking dumb. But they are in this room, and this is for Austin's follow-up experiment that Sarah and him were having such a trouble trying to get the right day to do this. And so Austin is setting up a piece of paper displaying, letting Sarah know which room is the experiment room in. And I fucking shit you not. They did it. They put up a blank piece of paper and they Photoshop experiment room. They Photoshopped the piece of paper that could have easily said what they were Photoshopping. I don't know if they couldn't just afford the ink, but they had $5 million to spend. You'd assume they could. It just, I didn't get it. They Photoshopped on a blank piece of paper the experiment room. Was it too bold of text to fucking print out? You couldn't have just written it down? I'm getting lightheaded being so upset over that part. It gets to me. But honestly, it's not even the dumbest part, to be completely honest. It's like, okay. It's not the dumbest part. All right, so Austin and Sarah are sitting down like, okay, here's what we're doing. And then Austin, oh, no. You want to hear even more pointless fucking chit-chat that Austin and Sarah have? They're talking about the weather in traffic. Because Sarah's like, ooh, sorry it took me so long. Traffic was crazy. Oh, yeah, that weather's so bad. That's that time of year or whatever. And then there's that part. And the next part, there's a fucking cardboard box. Like a simple, the boxes that blank white, fresh white sheets of paper come in for your printer. There's a box like that sitting right there. And Austin turns a knob on the side of the box. And then the top, the lid part slides off on its own. I mean, it's trying to be futuristic or something. Oh, that was another part I wanted to bring up as far as the IMDb. The IMDb page lists this movie as an animation, drama, and sci-fi. Now, when I read that, I was like, animation? I'm kind of fucking interested. This was after the first attempt. So, animation... Oh, shit, fuck. Animation, drama, sci-fi. I certainly wouldn't use two of those. And surprisingly, I would use animation. Loosely. I don't... Sci-fi, yeah, okay, I'll give it sci-fi. But anyways, so they're in the box. The box opens, and then Austin grabs these two pieces of, chips. He says they're chips, so they're chips. They're two chips. And then he goes on to explain to Sarah, oh, here's what we're going to do. Is we're going to place each of us are going to place one of these chips on the right side of our temples, and one of us is going to think of shapes, and the other one's going to pick up those thought patterns. Which is, is interesting. That kind of caught my attention. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Let's see what happens. And so Sarah was like, okay, fine, sure as fucking shit. This is where the animation comes in. And if you're thinking, oh, wow, $5 million animation, that's probably where the money went. Not $5 million. Not $4 million. Not 3, not 2, not 1, not even $100,000. Now, I'm not an animation expert, but I can certainly tell you they did not spend even half of the money that the budget says they had. They didn't. They flat out didn't. It's not good animation. It's terrible animation. I'm trying to find a comparable to it. There's a YouTuber. There's a YouTuber who does animations that are supposed to be intentionally bad, weird, and funky. If you look up those nutshell videos, if you look up Logan Paul, KSI, boxing match, nutshell movies, or in a nutshell, it's kind of like that animations, except for 10 steps down. It's worse than that. It's funny. Someone told me they could do that animation simply. So it's 2009. That was, it's almost been 10 years. I wouldn't even let a decade let me, tell me oh yeah, that was $5 million right there. Back in 2009, that's what $5 million would have got you. No one could have told me that. And also, if people want to use the excuse of the rest of the movie too. maybe the animation didn't just cost $5 million. You got to think about the production stuff, like on-camera stuff. Here's what I got to say to that. Birdemic, last I checked, the budget for that movie was estimated to be $10,000, and camera quality a little better, audio quality shit. But so I mean, it's worse than after last season, but not by much. So I could easily assume that as far as some of the money that went to the live action shit, it didn't cost more than $10,000. Not a fucking chance. Not a chance. Because I remember watching the director cut or director comment on Birdemic, and they actually like bought a car in the middle of production. And this this movie, I don't even think so much as buys a fucking table. I think they bought cardboard to make the MRI machine. That's about it. So what they do with the animation, so it's supposed to be Sarah's thoughts being transmitted to Austin's head. So they're both kind of seeing this, and it first starts off with with shapes and circles. It's that's what it does. It's taking quite a bit of time. It's taking a long time, getting through this product, and you're like, why the fuck is this taking so long? Like, what is the end goal here? Well, the end goal here is so it shows a few shapes, few things, and then all of a sudden you see like this circle, and it starts getting disfigured, and then it zooms out a bit, and it turns, and you see like a person. Like it's supposed to be like a shitty image of a person. It's one person, all of a sudden you see another person holding like a cone thing in his hand, and like stab in proceeds to stab the person. So then what they chalked it up to being is like, oh, they just saw that first guy in the movie's death. So that's what they chalked it up to be. Which is like, wow, really? That's what they did. So then they're like thinking, so then Sarah goes on to explain that she had been having visions beforehand. Like she had visions the week before that guy died. He got murdered. And it's like, oh, okay, this is the first time you're bringing it up? You didn't like tell anybody else? You didn't feel like telling your mom over the phone about the weird fucking dreams or visions or thoughts that you've had, or the weird predicament of you thinking one thing and then it actually happening? No, you just want to talk about some random bullshit? Yeah, that's fucking fine. That's, it came out of nowhere from Sarah. Sarah's just like, oh yeah, I had these thoughts a week before. So then Austin's like, okay, well, we could solve this mystery, is Austin's thought process. Which, I mean, so here's my thoughts as far as that animation goes. The animation sucks, but someone could easily defend and be like, well, it's probably that bad because, I mean, that's the first tech of, like, people doing that stuff as far as the chip on their right, brain seeing each other's thoughts. I mean, who are we to say what thoughts look like when you can, see them or whatever? I'd be like, okay, that's decent enough. That's a decent enough argument, all right? But how the fuck could Austin be like, oh, that person died. We could solve this mystery. We saw that really shitty imagery of polygons or whatever the fuck. We can solve this mystery. It's his thought process. Which, you watch the animations of this, and it's like, no, you can't. The only reason the audience would have made the connection to that guy, the guy in the beginning of the movie being the guy in the vision to have been killed, or that was the stabbing that Sarah saw, is because we saw it like 20 minutes ago. I wouldn't even say 20 minutes ago. We saw it like 10 minutes ago. This movie's... I'm going to get into it. That's a thought. So they go back and... Oh, my fucking... Hold on. getting so fucking frustrated, and dehydrated from this shit. Ooh, hydration. So they start going back into thoughts, and they're like, okay, so let's just treat this like we were just doing before normally when we're trying to envision certain stuff. And so that's what they start doing. Now, here's the thing. I totally understand that thought process. It was like, let's not force it. Let's just go with the flow with what we were doing before in order to get the same result. Totally got that. Problem is all the thoughts we were seeing, the animation we were seeing in the midst of it, it took too long. It took way too long. There was like, each time they were doing the thought thing to see a fucking murderer, there were 3 different animation scenes. I'm pretty sure. There was like 3 animation scenes every time, and they were fucking long, redundant, and ridiculous, and stupid, and unneeded. Like, it took too long. They could have just done 2 different ones and have the, rule of 3, 2 different ones, 2 short ones, and then and you have the third one being like, oh, hey, there's something murdery happening. No, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. Oh, okay. So during this process of them looking in the animation process, there was no talking in the beginning. Each time, like the first 2 times they were like, so the first time they saw the murderer and the second time they saw the murderer, both of those times when they were just looking at random shit, there was no talking at all during the animation. If they were going to talk, they cut back to them talking about what they were seeing or what they had just seen or whatever. So during that time, they cut back for the animation to focus on them, to give them camera time so that they can talk. Ugh. Gavin's trying to call me. PlasticSpoons Gavin trying to call me. Fuck him. Anyways, I fucking told him I was doing this podcast. He can suck my dick. Sorry, Gavin. Anyways, what the fuck you, Gavin? I totally forgot. Oh, so they were, they cut back to them talking away from the animation. So I was thinking like, oh, okay, so I guess, they didn't have the brain power to fucking add the animation over. I mean, they didn't add the dialogue over the animation. Okay, I guess that's a fucking excuse or whatever. That's fine. I'm not pissed. I'm not mad. I was a little mad. I was even more mad when the second scene of someone getting murdered pops up. They start talking over the fucking animation of that. So I'm sitting there like, what? I had to deal with a bunch of jump cuts in 5-second waits for them to talk, and then to stop in 5 seconds of them done talking? When they could have done this shit the entire time? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it was a thing. They did that. They sure as shit did that. The movie got to the animation. I'm still looking back, trying to get some reference points, but honestly, at this point, I don't even fucking need it. Because this movie left an impression on me for sure. So then they get to the second part of the animation. And let me say this. Okay, so the first time you see someone get killed in the animation process, the fucking thought thing, Sarah's thoughts. It's hard to tell. You couldn't even tell if it was, a white-skinned person, black-skinned person. There wasn't even a good distinction that they had hair. It was that fucking bad. So then we get to the second animation of a murder. And the second animation, it's not great or good or passable by any means, but you can clearly tell that there is a woman with brunette hair, a yellow blouse, a certain type of. You could tell what the fuck this person looked like. You could give a distinct, description of what the person looks like. So, I don't know why they decided to be like, all right, the first one, let's just do a shit job. Just get something that shows a fucking murder. And then they go to the second one, and they're like, all right, we need this one to look good for whatever reason. And during this time, okay, so during the animation, there were cuts to those two to Sarah and Austin talking, and then there was cuts to this fucking house. To a random house, to the house of where this brunette lady with the yellow blouse lived at. And also, Sarah was having the thoughts of this house too. She didn't know the house or anything. It's just like, oh, so this is a house. We need to get a good idea what this fucking house looks like, so we could potentially stop the murder, or whatever. And, ugh, God, it's not very good. So then they're seeing something happening. The lady animation is walking around, running around, and at one point Sarah or Austin's like, is she bleeding? Yeah, I think she's bleeding. You can't fucking tell. You can't tell there's blood on, like, is she bleeding on her left arm? And it's just like, how the fuck? I mean, I'm glad they said something. I mean, at least we know she is in harm and not doing what she's doing out of pure randomness. But you can't tell she's fucking bleeding. You can't see it. The animation is not that good. It's not $5 million fucking worthy. So, what she is doing, the lady in animation, she is throwing boxes at a wall. And Sarah's like, can you see that? Can you see that person in that corner? And Austin's like, I can't fucking see it. And Austin must have been speaking for all of us because you can't fucking see anything. You definitely don't see somebody. You just see a fucking wall. And then emerge through the wall is a fucking person. Now, this is the part that got to me a little bit. So, you can tell this person's wearing like a gray long shirt, blue pants, and you can kind of see his hair. But his face is covered by like a gray orb, so you can't see what he looks like. Alright, so it's just like, oh, okay, fucking Sarah can see everything else, but she can't fucking see the murderer? Alright, that's fucking legit. Okay, fine, cool. And so then the animation scene proceeds. This lady like throwing boxes at this orb face person or whatever, and then the guy proceeds to stab her. Or actually, she tries to exit the door for whatever, but she can't open the door. And no, actually, she is like at the wall doing something. You don't know what the fuck she's doing. Sarah's like, oh, she's trying to get out through the door, but the door must be locked or something. You can't fucking tell there's a door. You can't. And I don't know why the animator guy was like, we don't need a fucking door. Because, I mean, he made a house, the animation of the house, and it had a fucking door. But he was just like, nah, not important. Not important to the plot. So then the lady proceeds to get stabbed. So then Sarah and Austin are like, ooh, and they come out of the thought process, the animation world. They're like, ooh, that's crazy. I don't know who that person was. They didn't look recognizable. I can't tell where that house was, or whatever. And so then, it's like the same, like the camera's in the same place, but it cuts to like a different, like 5 minutes later, where Austin's like coming back from outside. He has a coat on or something, but Austin comes back from outside. He has like the chip thing taped to his right temple. You can see it. So I was like, oh, Austin was just fucking walking around with that shit. Sarah, I think, took hers off, but Austin was walking around. But Austin's just like, yeah, there's an ambulance or sirens, heading towards so-and-so street. Apparently some lady got stabbed, critically got stabbed a lot, and she's in critical condition. And it took me like 10 seconds for this to hit my brain. But it's like, how the fuck does Austin know that? That shit just happened. If the ambulance is heading towards there, nobody knows the situation. I don't know where the fuck he got that from. But, I mean, that... I would almost say that part's forgiven, but it's not. So Sarah and Austin are like, ooh, that's scary. We saw the animation of a murder that was just happened at the time. Let's do this again. Let's see what happens. All right. Sarah's like, okay, let's do it. So then they go back into animation world with same shit again. They do the same fucking 3 long ass animation scenes that has no point, and then the magic happens. This is where all logic for this movie kind of just I mean, there was no logic. But if you were kind of getting a like the whole situation of just like, okay, they're going to go through fucking all this shit. Like, you knew what was coming. But, if you were going to predict the next part, nothing. Nothing was fucking... You wouldn't been ready for this part. I wasn't. I was losing my fucking mind. So they go through 3 things, and then all of a sudden, they get the animation of another building. And then they see Gray Orb Head again. They see him, and he's still... Oh, by the way, he was holding a fucking cone the entire time. The guy couldn't make a knife. Couldn't. Just said, fuck that. Who cares? It's pointy, so it's obvious what the object is. So orb face, long... Okay, this is important. Orb face, long-sleeved gray. That is important. Is in the building, and is in a building. And then all of a sudden, you see him in front of a piece of paper saying experiment room. It says experiment room. I'm not fucking... This is for real. It's the fucking paper that was photoshopped experiment room. So the guy's in the building that Austin and Sarah are at. And that's when I lost my shit. Because of how beautiful that was. They photoshopped that piece of paper say experiment room, which was fucking ridiculous. And then they have a vision of the guy looking at the Photoshop piece of fucking paper. Okay, so then all of a sudden, like, Sarah and Austin come out of it like, uh-oh, we know where that is. That's here. And then the person is, like, standing outside of the room. He's right next to the door, and you see his arm holding a knife. Okay, so before you didn't know it was a knife. I mean, it was always a cone. So, I mean, you could assume it was a knife. It was a stabbing. It was a knife. But, it was a knife. So at this point, it's just like, oh, okay, so it was a fucking knife. Okay. So then he is wearing he's wearing clothes. He's physical. You can see him. This is important. He's physical. You can see him. He's wearing a black short sleeve shirt. He's wearing a black short sleeve shirt. And in the fucking the things in the animation, he's wearing a gray long sleeve shirt. You couldn't go into like Target or Walmart and buy it for $5. No one happened to have a fucking long sleeve gray shirt. Was that just too much? $5 million couldn't have covered that? Fucking. So anyway, so they're like standing outside. He's standing outside. Sarah and Austin kind of like stand up, and also they're kind of like. I mean, Austin's wide-eyed, but Sarah's like, "Oh, something's happening," and Austin and Sarah are just like looking at the door, and Austin's like, "Who's there?" And the door fucking opens. It slowly opens, but it opens for surely. Nobody's there. So it's like, oh, the guy must be playing some fucking tricks. No, the guy's not playing some fucking tricks. What it is the door opens by itself, and then you get some paranormal activity shit happening. Meaning, there's chairs, boxes, notebooks, fucking tables moving on their own. They're moving by themselves. They're slowly moving, surely. Austin and Sarah just looking at it like, what the fuck? They have a fucking ghost on their hands. They have a fucking murderous, invisible fucking ghost. Like, just 10 seconds ago, we saw a physical body, a person with a black shirt, standing outside that fucking room. Why is he a ghost now? Why is that the situation? So then, they proceed to go on for like a 10-minute, like, they don't run. Sarah and Austin don't run. They fucking walk. Austin and Sarah kind of get sliced a little bit. Not very much. It's like, Austin and Sarah will be standing there for like 10 seconds, and you think they're about to talk, but then Austin will be like, ah! And, then he'll like look at his arm, and then there'll be a close-up of his arm, and it's like, there's like a little red on it. He's like, ah! And then, Sarah gets cut, and they're walking around, and then they try to go to the door, and sure as fucking shit, the door, it can't open. Like, the handle wiggles like a normal door, but they can't open it. All right, so then, so to avoid the ghost, Austin and Sarah place 4 coolers in front of them to see if the ghost is approaching them. Sound logic if the room wasn't fucking gigantic. But fortunately for them, that plan worked perfectly as far as like being able to detect where the ghost is. Oh, by the way, there's a part where like Sarah gets cut and Austin decides, or braces, grabs some object and then hits the midair where the ghost is at, and he hits the ghost, and the ghost goes flying. So unless this guy has like invisible spray or whatever, it's not like a real ghost. Anyways, so back to the door. So the door happens. They put coolers in front of the fucking ghost, and sure as shit, the ghost is like falling for it. He's like, "Oh, I'm right here. I'm moving this beside. I'm moving this over. I'm moving this over." And Sarah and Austin, by the way, dead face. Like at this point, Austin isn't even wide eye. He's so fucking just is totally accepted the situation. He's just like, all right, he's coming closer. Okay, this is happening, and that's it. So when I got on acting before, line delivery, not bad, not terrible. It's fucking, it is what it is. It's not Birdemic, it's not Room. But sure as shit, they're in between line dialogues. They don't fucking do anything. There's a fucking ghost. There's a ghost running around with a fucking invisible knife cutting you guys up. And you're not doing anything? I mean, not doing anything. You're not reacting appropriately. You're just fucking like, this is the situation. We're gonna fucking do this. No. Anyways, so after the cooler thing, Austin's like standing there, and then I guess the ghost grabbed his arm and pulled him forward, and he's just like, he fell over, and then all of a sudden Sarah makes a loop-de-loop round. And then Austin has just decided to lay on the ground. And then Sarah goes to the wall, and you can tell the ghost is getting closer to her. And then Austin yells, "The chair!" or something to Sarah. And then Austin wakes up from a fucking dream. It was all a fucking dream. The biggest section of this movie was a dream. Austin wakes up where he was sitting during the experiment that him and Sarah were doing with the whole fucking chip on the right head. Sarah wasn't there yet. Austin was sleeping, and he had a dream about this. He had a dream. That's what he was doing. That's what happened. That's what that scene was with the fucking invisible ghost. It was all bullshit. Even the experiment, that wasn't even the experiment they were doing. The coolest part about the movie, and I will say there was the coolest part of the movie. The coolest part of the movie was them having, shared thoughts where they were seeing each other's fucking shit. That was cool. That was like, oh, that's a neat idea, whatever. They're both seeing a potential, like, psychic's thoughts, it's interesting. They fucking tore that away. They tore that whole idea away. And they wasted 30 minutes. All the animation shit was unnecessary and not needed because it was a fucking dream. It was all a fucking dream. The real experiment was it was just a questionnaire. It was just a questionnaire. He had Sarah write down 20 questions, and I kid you not, 10 minutes of this, not even, okay, I wouldn't say 10 minutes. An unnecessary chunk of this movie is Sarah asking him these 20 questions. I don't think she asked all 20 questions, but she asked him questions like, ooh, was there anything within the last 48 hours you wish you would have done differently? If you could buy a certain type of car, would it be a fucking Honda or fucking whatever? She actually asked these questions. Austin answered the questions with reasoning behind his answers. So as far as the whole murderer thing, no, Sarah didn't have those thoughts before them getting murdered. Sarah didn't have those thoughts at all. Actually, Sarah was late to the whole thing. Sarah was like, oh, I'm late. And Austin's like, oh, okay, let's just do this experiment. Which, looking back, is just like, oh, see, now that's what they should have done the first time when Sarah was like, oh, I was late, traffic and shit. So they do the fucking questionnaire. Now, I don't recall, but I don't think there was a reason. Austin and Sarah, in the midst of them answering the questions, stands up and they walk outside of the room. And oh man, that fucking freaked me out for a second. Outside the room. And they you don't see them seeing this, but there's a camera view of the guy wearing the black shirt and having a knife standing over somebody he had just stabbed. So So the murderer who murdered the first person in the movie shows up at this fucking college, and he's over this person he just stabbed and being like, give me the code to such and such so-and-so thing. And all of a sudden he looks over, and at this point you don't even know that Sarah and Austin are looking at him. So when he looks over at the camera, it's like, why the fuck is he looking at the camera? It's just like, oh, it turns out Austin and Sarah are right there apparently. So Austin and Sarah run back into the room that they were just in. Stupid. And Stabby McStabberton enters the room. Now, it's tough to say what the most ridiculous part of this movie is. To me, it's the dream. The most ridiculous part of this movie was the fact that the whole scene with the animation shit was just a dream. The whole chip thing was just a dream. That was the most ridiculous thing. But, one thing I gave credit to that being a dream was like, oh, well, I mean, at least there's not a ghost murderer running around. At least there wasn't like a ghost around. That was kind of dumb and unnecessary. Like, I don't understand why a ghost would want to kill people. So, Murder McStabberface enters the room, and he's walking towards Sarah and Austin like a fucking weirdo. Like, he tries to look like a stereotypical someone who's like has a knife in his right hand, and he's on his way walking so slowly to go stab a bitch. So that's it doesn't look good. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a chair fucking hits him. Like, out of midair. It just hits him. You kind of think, due to the fact that, like, the director doesn't know how to show what the actors are doing behind the camera, you thought, like, oh, okay, so maybe Austin threw the fucking chair. No, neither Austin or Sarah threw the chair. So the chair was thrown, the guy was knocked out. Nobody threw that chair. And all of a sudden, they're looking at each other like, did you throw the chair? No, I didn't throw a chair. Then, all of a sudden, a voice out of fucking nowhere is just like, hey, Sarah. Or whatever. And Sarah and Austin, still being the lame, non-existent, in-between line actors they are just like standing around and being like, did you say something, Austin? Austin's like, no, but I heard that too. It said, hey, Sarah. And then, it keeps on going. And then the ghost, this is a ghost. So the fucking ghost whole thing is back. The ghost is like, oh, I'm here. And there's like 10 minutes wasted of them looking at nothing and be like, okay, there is a ghost here. And the ghost is like, yeah, I can't lift a chair or anything, but I can lift this ruler. And the ghost lifts the ruler. And be like, wow. And it turns out some guy named Greg. And Sarah apparently knows him. I don't think it's the guy who got stabbed in the first place. Apparently, this guy was a victim of this guy killing people. And why he showed up to that room, to where that murderer was, I don't fucking know. I don't know. I've given up at this point trying to comprehend anything that was happening. So then all of a sudden, he's holding the ruler up in the air, and he's just like, oh, it's getting tough to hold this ruler. And then the ruler drops on a desk, and they're like, Greg, are you here? And then Greg's not there. I don't. Oh, and during this whole time, I'm just looking at the paper. During this whole time, the guy in the hallway, it got stabbed by Blackface McStabberface. Not Blackface. Black Shirt McStabberface. I'm trying to call him. That guy's still in the hallway bleeding. Sure, Sarah called 911 and was just like, oh, hey, I'm at so-and-so situation place, and there's murder here, and someone got stabbed. But they're like just standing in the room looking at what is supposed to be a ghost who they can't even see but only talk to, and there's somebody bleeding out in the hallway. And they're just like, clearly there's more important shit to look at. And yeah, so that goes on. So there's some semi-lazy writing. All right, so... All right, so that first scene with the MRI machine and the guy with the shaking fist in his left hand and the girl that gave that stupid line who the director was like, we don't need to take two. That came in full circle in the sense of like, it turns out that guy was part of the FBI. And, it's shown that he was the guy in the first scene with him, the camera's on his left hand and it's shaking like it was in the first scene. And he's part of the FBI. And also, this movie trying to explain itself makes no fucking sense. I might have already said that, but it doesn't. So the FBI guy goes like, "Oh yeah, so this guy was hired to try to get an experiment from this school or whatever. He's had multiple run-ins in different states, but yeah, he was the guy who stabbed people, and the reason why he stabbed them is because they weren't willing to give up any information about the experiment, and they were all part of this, experiment or whatever." And that was that. Like, it doesn't even say like who hired him. It doesn't say if there was going to be any further investigation. It didn't even like so on. It doesn't even like go to say like, oh, we should have like, someone probably should have made the connection of like all these people are part of the same science group working on something important. Like, even the group themselves didn't say jack shit. So yeah, that's it. I mean, that's that part. So then next scene, it shows Sarah back in the MRI machine room talking to some lady who's like, "Oh, I can lift my left arm," which was something in the beginning. So it's like, oh, okay, so that's she made a recovery or whatever, so Sarah can feel good about her fucking self. And then Austin is Austin, doesn't do shit. Hilarious. Austin is sitting at a desk, and he's just like looking at something. And then all of a sudden behind him, his coat falls off the hook. Austin gets up and turns around, looks at the coat on the ground, looks up, and he's like, "Greg?" And that's the end of the scene. Greg doesn't answer, and that's the last we've seen of Austin. And so then the last scene of this movie is, okay, so there was this couple in the beginning of the movie that were just walking around the middle of the house. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, I couldn't understand anything they were fucking saying, this husband and wife duo. I didn't know what they were saying. I couldn't even tell you what the hell they were really talking about. I know the one thing they talked about was the fact that, like, such and such thing happened, he died, and we couldn't even get all of his stuff because they took it in, the police took it into evidence. And you kind of think it's the first guy that died, that's his parents, but I'm not too sure. I really don't think the first guy in the movie's Greg, but I could be wrong. So it goes back to this woman, the mom of the house, and this other lady. And they're talking about just the fucking area which they live in. One of them talks about a vacation, and then they go inside the house, and the mom's just like, "Oh yeah, this room used to have a wall in the middle of it, making this area into 2 rooms, but then once me and my husband moved in, we just, broke it down, and now it's very spacious." Ooh, really? That's the scene. And then all of a sudden they go over to this area of pictures, and they start looking at pictures, and the guest of the house is just like, "Oh, this is so-and-so?" And she's like, yep, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden picks up another picture, and he's just like, "Oh, yeah, sad to say, blah, blah, blah." It turns out it's Greg. It's a picture of, like, what Greg, who Greg is. And roll credit scene. That's the fucking movie. It didn't make any sense at all. It didn't add up to anything. There was so much, like, set up to what you think, like, okay, there's so much smart talk going on here, or what I would think smart talk is. Smart talk going on here, it's supposed to lead something. Like, in the beginning of the movie, there's parts where they're talking about, like, oh, well, people are hearing thoughts in their heads of people who don't live or who aren't around anymore, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I guess that kind of came back or whatever, because, Ghost Greg talks to Sarah and Austin like, "You're the only 2 I can ever talk to. After I died, I was just walking around trying to talk to people, and they couldn't hear me or see me." It's like, oh, okay, so apparently it's just like, okay, so all the people, or the schizophrenics or whatever, people who hear voices in their heads are actually just hearing ghosts, is what I'm getting out of that part. That's the whole thing. They're just hearing ghosts, apparently. That's that. And then the MRI machine, it doesn't go any further. Like, that was a fucking scene. That was a scene. It didn't do anything. Anything involving the MRI machine didn't end up being anything, as far as I know. Maybe this movie's way too smart for me, and so much shit went over my head. I just don't get it. It blew my mind how little shit made sense. So then you finish the movie, and you're like, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way this movie's $5 million. So as far as what this movie goes, as far as out of a 10 for me, it's easily 1 out of 10. It's a 1 star out of 10 stars, 1 being the worst. Is a fucking terrible movie. It's stupid and it's unwatchable. It's not Birdemic or The Room quality in the sense of like it's so bad it's good. It's bad. It is unwatchable. It really is. Like the only thing I could see this movie being fun for is if you get a group of friends to watch it and then you all write your theories of what everything is, like why people are talking about certain things or trying to make sense of the movie. Like all of you watch it and each of you try your best to make sense of the movie. That could be kind of interesting, but I wouldn't propose any me and my friends would do it. I wouldn't do it. I tried to do it right here, but I didn't even try to make sense of it. Or a little bit I did. Okay. So 1 out of 10. It's a fucking bad movie. I wouldn't watch it. It's not worth a rewatch. I was thinking about rewatching it, and then I was like, no, I have better things to do. So here's more, kind of a different thought about this movie. So I was looking at the reviews online of this movie, and it's basically the same, unwatchable, you can't watch it or whatever. But then somebody reviewed it and gave an interesting perspective of why they thought this movie was made. I couldn't tell you why this movie was made. I wouldn't have even guessed this reason, but this one person did. This one person did. He reviewed it as it's fake. And I was like, that's interesting. He says that he believes that this movie was made to capture the shock value of how bad it is. Like how The Room accidentally got that, that status of being so bad it's good that it became a cult hit. This movie was intentionally trying to be a cult hit, is what this guy was assuming. And with everything that I've seen and watched, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I think The Room came out in 2005. Let me see this. So After Last Season came out in 2009. It was on a $5 million budget. And let's go to The Room. Okay, so The Room came out in 2003. So there's a 6 years difference. And as far as budget, they're like basically the same. The Room was $6 million. This one was $5 million. So I could honestly see that being the truth. I could see them just being like, okay, so that movie got, The Room got, this is what I'm thinking the writer, director of After Last Season may have been thinking. It's like, oh, that movie, The Room, has got a cult following and everything. Because, even though it's bad, a lot of people love watching it because it is bad. Perhaps I should try my hand in that. I will try to make a movie so bad it is good and try to say I had such a fucking ridiculous budget to where people would think, where the fuck the money go? And honestly, I think that's the case. Because you look at this movie and you think there's no way somebody wrote this, directed this, and edited this to a point where they're like, yes, this is something I want to show to the world. There's no way. The actors are adults. I don't even understand why the actors did this. I don't know. It's sketchy is all I'm saying. It's sketchy to think that somebody intentionally made this movie thinking it was good, because it's not. Not at all. See, this is how sad I think this movie is. Back in middle school, high school, me, Travis, and Andrew, we got. And another friend of ours got a camera from an off-brand Walmart type store, and this camera was $60. It was a really crappy camera.
And we recorded it visually, and we also used the microphone on the camera to record the audio. And it was a terrible camera. I mean, we might have had better quality if we would have recorded it off our phones, but we recorded it off that, and we tried editing it, and we edited it for whatever to completion. And this was us being being fucking stupid ass teenagers is what we were doing. And I can honestly say everything that back in the day me, Travis, Andrew, and our other friend made is better than this movie in every way. Every way. Like, I honestly would put a poll as far as gather 100 people and show them this movie and show them all of our stupid ass old videos that we made back in middle school and high school, and take a tally and be like, which one would you rewatch again? I would put my money that they would rewatch our old high school, middle school shit. And that's fucking sad to say. I don't know the director, writer's credibility in anything, but I looked him up on IMDb, and he doesn't have any other credits besides this movie. So, I mean, and that also goes to say, show how did somebody get $5 million? Who would have funded this? It has a production company in the beginning. I don't remember what it was, but I don't know how it got $5 million. Yeah, is there anything? Oh, okay. So one thing I gotta say. So 40 minutes of this movie is a fucking dream. 40 minutes. I added it all up. I went back and was just like, all right, when did this fucking scene start? And when did it get to the part where he woke up? It was 40 minutes. This movie's an hour and a half. So nearly half of the fucking movie, not counting the intro credits and the ending credits, is a dream. So half of this movie is a waste of time. That dream didn't end up being anything. It didn't. And I don't understand it. Like I said, I may just be fucking stupid and not understand something. But I mean, I feel comfortable enough to come up and be like, that was stupid and didn't make any sense. Now, if someone were to come up to me and be like, well, I mean, the part of the dream was blah, 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 I'd be like, okay, maybe you got me there. But no, I don't think anyone could defend the dream. It was fucking stupid, pointless, wasted. And a lot of this movie, so say my whole theory of this movie being an intentional cult classic hit that the director was trying to mimic The Room off of, say that wasn't true. Say this was, the director would be like, yes, this is my dream to make an American movie. I don't know if the guy's foreign. I'm just guessing foreign people don't know how to make movies. As far as amateur foreign people. He's like, I'm going to make a movie and it's going to be incredible. A lot of the shit happened was just wasted time. I said it, but it's wasted time. Honestly, if they were, I don't know what to think really, as far as which wasn't. I feel like they recorded both scenes, the scene of the dream and the scene of the actual Stabber McFace coming in, and they just couldn't decide what angle to put it on, so they used both. I mean, if that's true, I kind of want to see the outcome of the first scenario with the dream part. What would have fucking happened? How would they have beat the invisible ghost? I don't know. But 40 minutes, half of the movie was fucking wasted on a dream, and I was honestly irritating. I don't have anything else to say about the movie. The last after season. I don't even fucking remember the name anymore. I'm so pissed. It's after last season. Yeah, after last season. So yeah, I mean, if you want to watch it, it's on YouTube after last season. It's an hour and a half. It's there. I don't think it's going anywhere because you can't buy it. I would suggest you watch in the sense of trying to comprehend what the fuck I'm saying. But as far as get together, sit down with your friends and laugh at a movie, not a fucking chance. Not a chance. I think Andrew was trying to torture me. I think he knows me too well where I was trying to make sense out of everything, and it didn't happen. And he's just like, I got the bastard. But, yeah, so let me know what you guys think of this. I might do more solo podcasts, maybe not necessarily movie reviews or just media reviews. Maybe I'll do other random shit. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I want to take a shot in the dark with this. But, yeah, our shit's going on YouTube now. If you were fucking following us from SoundCloud. Anyways, so thanks for listening. Appreciate you hearing me fucking bitch the entire time. And, yeah, till next time, maybe I'll have the rest of the guys with me.